The McAllister Ranch had stood for 70 years, its fences weathered but unbroken, its pastures rolling under the vast Texas sky. Joe McAllister, known to everyone as Grandpa Joe, had worked the land since he was a boy, raising cattle, fixing what needed fixing, and answering to no one. That was before Silver Oaks Estates sprang up beside his property, bringing paved roads, vinyl fences, and the iron fist of the Homeowners Association. At first, the HOA's letters were just a nuisance. Grass too tall, fence paint peeling, ranch vehicles parked in view of the road. Joe scoffed at each one, tossing them into the wood stove. But then came Dale Ridgely. Ridgely was a bull-necked, humorless man who'd spent 20 years as a small-town cop before retiring into what he clearly saw as his true calling, enforcing HOA bylaws with military precision. He patrolled Silver Oaks in a glossy black truck, its bed loaded with measuring tapes, clipboards, and a camera for documenting violations. And for reasons Joe couldn't fathom, Ridgely had decided the McAllisters were his personal project. "Mr. McAllister," Ridgely said one evening, leaning against his truck where it was parked. Again, on the ranch's gravel easement, "You've got 48 hours to remove that derelict stock trailer. It's in violation of community aesthetic standards." Joe spat a stream of tobacco into the dust. "That derelict trailer's been there since before your subdivision," was a twinkle in some developer's eye. "And last I checked, this ain't your community." Ridgely's smile was thin. "County records say otherwise. This easement is shared land, and that means HOA rules apply." He slapped a bright orange violation notice onto the trailer. 48 hours. After that, we tow it." Joe's hands clenched into fists, but he kept them at his sides. He'd dealt with men like Ridgely before, men who thought a badge or a rulebook made them untouchable. Inside the ranch house, Joe's grandson Jake was waiting, his face tense. "They're not gonna stop, Grandpa," Joe grunted, pouring himself a whiskey. "No, they ain't." Jake, lean and sharp-eyed at 23, had grown up on the ranch, but had none of Joe's patience for fools. "We could fight it legally, get a surveyor, prove that easement's ours, and waste months and thousands we don't got." Joe shook his head. "Nah, Ridgely don't want paperwork. He wants to win." The next morning, Ridgely's truck was there, again, parked half on the easement, half on McAllister dirt. Joe studied it from the porch, the morning sun glinting off its spotless hood. Then he walked to the barn, where his old Ford flatbed and a set of tow chains waited. Jake followed, eyes widening. "You're not seriously—" "Just adjusting a few things," Joe said, hefting the chains. By noon, Ridgely's truck hadn't moved. By dusk, it still hadn't. And as the last light faded, Joe McAllister, 68 years old, with a bum knee and a temper like a sparked fuse, backed the flatbed up to the HOA truck and got to work. The chains rattled. The Ford's engine growled. And inch by inch, the black truck was dragged backward, its tires carving fresh furrows in the dirt. Jake watched, half horrified, half exhilarated. "They're gonna know it was you." Joe wiped his brow. "Let 'em!" He didn't stop until the truck's rear tires were perched at the very edge of Miller's Creek, the water swirling hungrily below. One good shove, and it would be gone. Joe hesitated. Then, with a slow grin, he unhooked the chains. "Let's see how he likes my rules." Dawn crept over the ranch like a cautious thief, pale light sliding across the creek where Ridgely's truck sat half submerged, its tailgate kissing the muddy bank. Joe McAllister stood at the kitchen window, sipping bitter black coffee as he watched the first flies gather on the vehicle's glossy hood. He didn't smile. This wasn't triumph. It was a declaration of war. Jake burst through the screen door, breathless. Sheriff's cruiser just turned off the main road. Joe set down his cup. Took him long enough. The tires of the patrol car crunched over gravel as it rolled up the drive. Sheriff Ellis stepped out, hat low over his eyes, with Ridgely storming. Behind him, face purple beneath his HOA cap. "You sabotaged county property." Ridgely jabbed a finger at the creek. Joe ambled onto the porch, thumbs hooked in his belt. "Funny. Looks to me like your truck took a midnight swim all on its own." Ellis sighed. "Joe, we both know that truck didn't drive itself into Miller's Creek." "Prove it didn't." Ridgely lunged forward, but Ellis barred an arm across his chest. "Dale, stand down." He turned back to Joe. "You really want to go down this road? 'Cause I can arrest you for criminal mischief right now." Jake stiffened, but Joe just chuckled. "On what evidence? You got witnesses, tire tracks, or just this blowhard's word?" He nodded at Ridgely, whose fists trembled at his sides. Ellis exhaled through his nose. "I'll give you till sundown to fish that truck out. After that, it's impound fees and charges." He tipped his hat. "Don't make this worse than it is." As the sheriff's car disappeared down the road, Ridgely lingered, his voice a venomous whisper. "This isn't over, McAllister. I'll bury you in fines so deep your grandkids'll be paying 'em off." Joe spat near Ridgely's polished boots. "You're welcome to try." By noon, the ranch hands had winched the truck from the creek, its interior reeking of algae and stagnant water. Jake tossed the sopping floor mats onto the gravel. "He's gonna retaliate. You know that, right?" Joe tightened a bolt on the tow hitch. Counting on it, the retaliation came faster than expected. At 3:17 p.m., a certified letter arrived from the HOA, $5,000 in fines for destruction of association property and endangering community safety. By 5 p.m., a work crew arrived to install a bright orange barrier across the easement. "No trespassing, by order of Silver Oaks, HOA." Jake kicked the barrier. "They're cutting us off from the back pasture." Joe studied the notice, his jaw working. Then he walked to the barn and emerged with a chainsaw. The roar of the engine drowned out Jake's protests as Joe reduced the barrier to splinters. In under a minute, he killed the saw and wiped sweat from his brow. "Tell Ridgely his plastic fence won't last 10 seconds out here." Dusk brought silence, thick and heavy. Joe sat on the porch, cleaning his rifle, when headlights sliced through the dark. Not Ridgely's truck this time. A Silver Oak security SUV, idling at the property line. A bullhorn crackled. "Joseph McAllister, this is your final warning. Further vandalism will result in immediate legal." Joe fired a single shot into the air. The SUV's tires screeched as it reversed down the road. Jake stared at him. "You're escalating." Joe slid the rifle's bolt shut with a click. "Nope, I'm clarifying." He nodded toward the darkened fields. "They think we'll roll over. Time to show 'em what happens when you push a McAllister too far." The morning after the gunshot, the ranch hummed with uneasy silence. Joe McAllister sat at the kitchen table, methodically cleaning his revolver, while Jake paced like a caged wolf. "You know they'll call the sheriff again," Jake said, running, a hand through his hair. "That wasn't just a warning shot to them. It's a threat." Joe didn't look up. "Good." The coffee pot hissed, its bitter aroma filling the room. Outside, the first rays of sun stretched across the fields, illuminating fresh tire tracks leading to the property line. But it wasn't Ridgely's truck this time. A silver sedan rolled up, and a woman in a sharp pantsuit stepped out. She carried a leather-bound folder and the smug confidence of someone used to winning. Jake's stomach dropped. That's HOA legal. Joe set down his gun. About damn time they sent a real opponent. The woman, Meredith Cole, according to the embossed business card she offered, smiled like a dentist about to drill. Mr. McAllister, I'm here to discuss a resolution before this escalates further. Joe didn't take the card. Only resolution I want is Ridgely off my land. Cole's smile tightened. Dale is acting within HOA authority. You Pace, however, are facing criminal charges, unless you sign this. She slid the folder across the table. Jake snatched it first. His face darkened as he read. This says we forfeit the easement and pay $15,000 in damages, or they press charges for vandalism and assault. Joe barked a laugh. Assault? I shot at the sky. With a registered firearm, Cole said smoothly, which the HOA can argue constitutes intimidation. Sheriff Ellis is willing to testify to that. The trap snapped shut. Jake's hands shook. They'd outmaneuvered them. Joe stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. Get off my land. Cole didn't flinch. You have 24 hours to decide. The moment her taillights disappeared, Jake exploded. We're screwed. If we don't sign, you go to jail. If we do, we lose access to the back 40 and half our water rights. Joe stared at the folder like it was a rattlesnake. Then he walked to the mantel and took down a rusted metal box. Inside lay a single yellowed document. Jake frowned. What's that? The original 1952 land grant. Joe unfolded it carefully. Says here the easement's ours in perpetuity, unless the HOA can prove shared maintenance. Which they haven't. A slow grin spread across his face. But they have been using it. Jake's eyes widened. So if we prove they've treated it as our land, then their claim vanishes. Joe grabbed his hat. And I know just how to do it. That night, under a moonless sky, Joe and Jake staked 12 solar-powered game cameras along the easement's border. Motion activated, Joe muttered, tightening the last bracket. Catches every tire that rolls through here. Jake wiped sweat from his brow. And when Ridgely drives over tomorrow, Joe's teeth flashed in the dark. Then we'll have proof he's trespassing. Daily, they barely slept. At dawn, Jake bolted upright at the sound of an engine. Peering through the blinds, he saw it, Ridgely's replacement truck, crawling along the easement like always. The camera's red light blinked. Got you. The HOA emergency meeting was packed. Residents murmured as Joe and Jake strode in, trailing mud from their boots. Ridgely sneered from the podium. No weapons allowed, McAllister. Joe tossed a thumb drive onto the board table. No lies allowed either. Play it. The footage rolled. Ridgely's truck, day after day, crossing onto McAllister land. Then Cole's sedan. Then the security SUV. The room erupted. Joe raised his voice above the chaos. Either that easement's yours, in which case, you're liable for its upkeep, or it's mine, and every one of you is trespassing. He leaned forward. Choose. Cole's composure cracked. The board members whispered furiously. Then Ridgely lunged, not at Joe, but at the projector, yanking cords like a madman. The screen went black. Silence. Joe straightened his hat. Guess we'll see y'all in court. The McAllister Ranch had never looked more like a battlefield. Sheriff Ellis's cruiser idled at the gate, flanked by 2 HOA security trucks, their headlights cutting through the pre-dawn fog. Joe McAllister stood on his porch, the thumb drive, with the damning footage clenched in his fist like a grenade. Jake hovered in the doorway, his voice tight. They're not here to talk, Grandpa. Joe didn't flinch. Good. Talking's over. Ellis stepped out first, his hand resting on his holster. "Joe, don't make this worse. Come down to the station, and we'll sort this out civilly." Behind him, Ridgely emerged from a truck, his face twisted in triumph. A deputy began unspooling crime scene tape between the fence posts. Joe's boots thudded against the porch steps as he descended. "You're serving me on my land." Ellis grimaced. "Judge issued a restraining order. You're barred from the easement pending litigation." He held out the papers. HOA's got an injunction to seize it. The words hit Jake like a punch. They'd lost. But Joe just smiled. He pulled an ancient leather-bound ledger from his jacket and slapped it into Ellis's chest. 1923, County Land Records. Page 47. Read it out loud. Ellis hesitated, then flipped it open. His eyes scanned the page, then widened. "The easement shall remain the sole property of the landowner, in perpetuity, unless formally ceded, or..." He stopped, looked up. "Ceded by written agreement with notarized signatures from all vested parties." Joe's grin was all teeth. "That's right. My granddaddy leased that strip to the county for road access. Lease expired in '68. HOA's got no claim." Ridgely lunged forward. "Bullshit! That's legal fact." Ellis snapped. He turned to the deputy. "Take down that tape." The air crackled with the sound of power shifting. By noon, the news had spread through Silver Oaks like wildfire. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Without Ridgely, Joe and Jake arrived to a packed clubhouse, where Meredith Cole sat, pale-faced at the podium. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "The HOA will drop all claims to the easement." The room erupted. Joe waited for the noise to die. And Ridgely, Cole's lips thinned, resigned, effective immediately. Jake exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. But Joe wasn't done. "One more thing." He tossed a set of keys onto the table. "These are for the gate I'm putting up at the property line. Any HOA truck crosses it." He tipped his hat. "That won't be a warning shot." That night, the McAllisters sat on the porch, watching fireflies dance over the creek where Ridgely's truck had sunk. Jake handed Joe a beer. "We really won." Joe took a long pull. "Nope. We just got back what was always ours." He nodded towards Silver Oaks, where the streetlights flickered like distant stars. "But they'll remember, somewhere in the dark, a coyote howled." The ranch stood quiet, unbroken, its fences holding fast against the world.